A high-stakes game is underway in Washington over Syria tonight, but no decision yet on how to confront the Assad regime. On Saturday, U.S. President Barack Obama slammed the brakes on a military strike. The American Congress will now have a say on what to do next. In the meantime, top U.S. officials continue to build the case for military intervention as Syria vows to fight back if the Pentagon strikes. Let's join our Washington Bureau Chief Eric Sorensen with the latest. Eric?
Robin, after yesterday's surprise decision not to attack Syria immediately, the White House is now building the case to attack Syria later.
A very important recent development.
The U.S. Secretary of State began rebuilding the argument today for a military strike on Syria. After the apparent chemical attack in Damascus, there is proof now, says Kerry, that first responders were contaminated when they showed up.
And hair samples and blood samples have tested positive for signatures of sarin. So this case is building, and this case will build.
But this case will also now be voted on by the U.S. Congress, and that's a gamble.
Absolutely. If Congress votes this down, we should not be involved in the Syrian war.
The United States should take military action against...
What happened to change President Obama's plans? He was always willing to ignore the United Nations because of a Russian veto. And the president's war powers meant he could ignore the U.S. Congress, too. And warships were in place. But then he lost Britain.
It is clear to me that the British Parliament, reflecting the views of the British people, does not want to see British military action.
Reflecting the views of the British people. At the same time, a poll of the American people showed almost 80% wanted Congress to have a vote. Obama, a constitutional scholar, was having second thoughts. There was reportedly a fierce debate among his advisors. Obama, the reluctant warrior, chose not to act on his own.
I will seek authorization for the use of force from the American people's representatives in Congress.
This is a war of choice. This is Mr. Obama's war, but he's trying to make it the American people's war, Congress's war. He doesn't want to go it alone.
The delay in Washington does give the United Nations inspectors time to analyze the chemical evidence they gathered in Syria.
Samples will begin to be transferred to laboratories tomorrow. Use of chemical weapons will not be accepted under any circumstances, and there should be no impunity.
Behind closed doors in Washington today, members of both parties were briefed. Some Democrats may oppose Obama on Syria.
Is that just going to war? Is that bombing? Is that killing more people? I'm not there yet.
But there are Republicans, normally critics, who may be with the president on Syria.
If Congress overrules a decision of the President of the United States on an issue of national security, that could set a catastrophic precedent in the future.
For days, President Obama was working up an international coalition on Syria. Now he needs a political coalition at home, a combination of Republicans and Democrats in Congress to give him the mandate he now says he wants. Robin?
Eric, what happens then if Congress doesn't authorize a strike against Syria?
That's a good question. The president still has the authority to order military action into Syria. And today, the Secretary of State, Kerry, was asked repeatedly, well, if Congress turns it down, then is that what the president will do? He will act alone. And Kerry refused to answer that. He would only say that he is confident Congress will back up the president.